Hey guys, so we're going to be continuing to look at linear functions, but for this part of the week, we're going to focus on intercepts. So first, let's go over what we've done before. So writing an equation in slope-intercept form. So slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. So to write the equation, I need m and b. B is my y-intercept, so that's where it touches the y. And M is rise over 1. So I have to find another point that hits exactly on the corner of the box. And then I need to figure out how many spaces I went in each direction. So in this case, I went down 2 and right 3. So my slope is negative 2/3. Remember that if a line is going down from left to right, the slope should be negative. Up from left to right, it's positive. So that makes my equation negative 2/3 x plus 2. Cool. All right. So for the first half of the week, we also learned how to write an equation when they give you a slope, which is m, and a point, which is an x and a y. So remember to write an equation. I still need m and I still need b. And they told me m, right? They said it was negative 3/4. But I have to figure out what b is. So to do that, I'm going to plug these three things into y equals mx plus b. So for y, I'll put negative 4. For m, I'll put negative 3/4. And for x, I will put 4. I don't know what b is. I have to solve for that. So first step is going to be to simplify. I'm going to multiply negative 3/4 times 4. So that'll give me negative 3. And then to figure out what b is, I just solve. So I add 3 to both sides. So I get b equals negative 1. So now I know what b is, so I can write my equation. Ta-da! Amazing. Wonderful. I know. It's so exciting. Math is awesome. All right. For this one, right, I still have to find m and b to write an equation, but they didn't give me any of them. However, we do have a formula for slope. So if you remember, formula for slope is that you subtract your y's on top of a fraction, and then you subtract your x's. Normally, this is something I would write on the board for you, but you know what? We're not in school, so you're going to have to write it down somewhere to have. Or you could Google it, but that's annoying. Just write it down somewhere, and then you can always have it. So anyway, I'm going to label my points x1, y1, x2, y2, and then I'm going to plug them in. So my slope is going to be, on top I've got 1 minus 5. And on the bottom I've got negative 2 minus 2. So 1 minus 5 is negative 4. Negative 2 minus 2 is also negative 4. Negative 4 divided by negative 4 is just 1. So look, we found our slope. Awesome. Now to find b, I have to do what I did before, where I plug stuff in and solve for b. So I know that my slope is 1. It doesn't matter which point I pick. I'll just use the first one. So remember, I'm plugging it into y equals mx plus b. So I've got 5 for y, 1 for m, 2 for x, and then I don't know b yet. So I'm going to solve. 1 times 2 is just 2. So to get b by itself, I subtract 2 on both sides, and I get that b equals 3. And hey, look at that. I now have m and b solved, and I can now write an equation. Wow. I'm amazed. Just so you know, obviously I will take it if you write it like that, but more proper way to write it would just be x plus 3. Oops. We don't normally write the 1 when we're multiplying something by 1. It is itself, so we're all good. Okay. So, x and y intercepts. Well, we've talked about a y-intercept, because that's what b is. B is your y-intercept. So, on a graph, your x-intercept is where it touches the x-axis, and your y-intercept is where it touches the y-axis. So, for an equation, what that means is that your x-intercept happens when y is 0, and your y-intercept happens when x is 0. So basically, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to plug 0 in for x and y, just not at the same time, because that would be silly. So first we'll find the x-intercept. So to do that, I make y equal 0. Negative 5/4 x plus 5. Then I just have to solve this, right? So I'm going to subtract 5 on both sides. And I will get negative 5/4 x equals negative 5. Now, here's the part that gets weird. We're technically dividing by a fraction. When you divide by a fraction, you multiply by the reciprocal. That's something that a lot of people are just like, what? So basically, I'm dividing by negative 5/4, but if you're going to do that in a calculator, right, you've got to put negative 5/4 in parentheses. If you don't, you're going to get the wrong answer. So don't do this in your phone calculator because it won't work. I'm dividing both sides by negative 5/4. You can type that into GeoGebra, into Desmos, or any scientific calculator, not your phone calculator. What I'm essentially doing is when I divide by negative 5/4, I'm multiplying by 4, negative 4/5. It's like you multiply by the reciprocal, which is the fraction flipped over. And then negative 5, well, the 5's cancel out, and the negatives cancel out, and I'm left with 4. But you can type it into a calculator, like, don't freak out. So my x-intercept is the point, because it's a point on a graph, technically, or 0. In fact, I'm not even going to circle that. There we go. To find the y-intercept is super easy. You just plug in 0 for x. Anything times 0 is 0. And, as I've said before, b is the y-intercept. So my y-intercept is the point 0, 5, because it's when x is 0. When x is 0, y is 5 in this case. Okay. One more. So the x-intercept is the tricky one. I have to make y equals 0 and solve for x. So I'm going to subtract 2 on both sides. I get 2x equals negative 2. And then divide by 2 on both sides. And I get x equals negative 1. So my x-intercept is the point negative 1, 0. When y is 0, x is negative 1. So, it's not too bad when there's a fraction in it. Really, just in the fraction, you can just use a calculator to divide. It's just people get freaked out by fractions. Fractions are your friends. Right? I just remember that Finding Nemo saying, "Fish are friends, not food." I was trying to think of like fractions are friends, not. But they're just friends. Fractions are our friends. Anyway. So for the y-intercept, you're plugging in 0 for x. And anything times 0 is 0, and 0 is nothing. So nothing plus 2 is just 2. So it's the point 0.02, which obviously you could have gotten just by looking at the equation, because B is our y-intercept. So anyway, that's the new stuff. Nothing too crazy. Oh, yeah, there you go.